everybody, Stephen here, and today I'm going to show you 3 different kind of movements that you can do for improving thoracic spine extension, where we're looking here, right? A lot of people are kind of stuck in what's called kyphosis, which is where they have this rounded shoulder, rounded back kind of posture. A lot of that kind of boils down to working at desk jobs, and then just going home and sitting on a couch for long periods of time. We kind of slowly over time harden this position because our body's trying to be the most efficient that it can be with the movements that we do the most, right? It wants to be better at those things. So if you're sitting at a desk like this a lot, just naturally, because this is a more active position, over time your body's going to kind of want to be in this position long term. So for this, we're going opposite of that. We're trying to open all of this up and try and move the spine segmentally, meaning each vertebrae moves. I always think about a snake when I think about the spine. We can do these very grand movements, but when we ask individuals to move one small area, because the movement becomes so small, they either can't recognize that they're doing it or they just can't do it, right? So this is to improve that spinal extension, kind of segmentation, right? So with this, we're gonna need a foam roller and we're gonna need a band here. So this is a blending of different modalities, some from restorative exercise, Katie Bowman system. We're gonna see some that are from functional range conditioning. We're kind of just interworking all of these to create somewhat of a routine, right? Now this is intro. It gets far more complex than this, but the average person can start here. Everybody, especially if you're watching this, most likely knows that you could just foam roll the back in terms of soft tissue work, right? I'm just kind of doing self-massage. But if I kind of think about my thoracic spine almost being, if I took a line straight from my sternum, right, and went straight through the other side of my back, that's not exact, but if I kind of, that general area, think about that. We're gonna think from there up with this versus lower than that. I do not want this on my lower back where I don't have any ribs, okay? Now once I'm here, I can start high or I could start low and work either direction, meaning I could start at this point and kind of notch it, right? I'll pick anywhere from 2 to 3 different settings. But let's just pick this setting for right now. What I'm gonna do is interlock my hands back behind my head. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want my head to be able to rest in this position so that I'm not straining my neck to hold. Because if I'm here for a long period of time, what's gonna happen is all the musculature on the front of the neck, my SCM, my levators, they're gonna get really, really tight because they're trying to hold the weight of your head up. We don't want that. Because then what's gonna happen is you're gonna say, well, now my neck hurts, right? So I interlock my hands at the base of my skull. I keep my elbows out. My ribs are down. So I'm not already just trying to overly extend my spine. I don't want that, right? Because a lot of that bend is coming from my lower back, right? It's a false sense of thoracic spine extension, right? Which we're gonna really focus more on the thoracic spine with this. I'll pick a spot, right? And as I'm here, my ribs are down, okay? Butt is on the floor, feet are spread apart, almost like I'm gonna do a crunch. And I'm here, and then I'm just breathing into this position as my head is dead weight in my hands and I keep my spine nice and neutral, right? And then from here, I'm gonna let gravity slowly pull me back, and I'll feel that stretch and gravity doing its job. And then I'll hang out here 30 seconds, maybe 45 seconds. You could push that a little bit longer, but for a lot of people, you may not be there. You may be at like 10 to 15 seconds, and that's okay. Just breathing into my belly, letting gravity do the work. And like I said, I'll feel end range on this, because in order to go further from this position, I would literally have to let my lower back arch, right? I'd have to go like this to do that. That's not what we're after. Like I said, if I keep my ribs down, and then they cannot move from this position, very, very small movement, okay? So I could start here, and then I could move down to this spot, and then this spot, or I could do the reverse. I could start at the top, and then go here, and then here. Generally, when I have clients do this, we're doing it in 3 different spots. I've just found on average, most people have 2 or 3 spots that we really need to focus on. You may have one that's very, very apparent. You could just start there, that's fine, okay? The time intervals are gonna be up to you, 15, 20, 30, 40, 45, 60 seconds, whatever it may be, whatever you can tolerate. And you can build up over time in that, okay? Now, figuring out where your sticking point is can be tricky if you don't have external eyes watching. So it's always good to film yourself for the next part, which is that we can get into CAMEL. And then there's another variation that I'm gonna show you, which is the same thing. And now we're actually trying to segment the spine. So this is the stretch here. This next portion is the activation, but it could also be considered part of the testing. Now I can figure out some stuff from using the foam roller here, because you'll hit an area and you'll be like, that doesn't want to move, right? It feels just more tight than any other spot, right? But here you'll feel, I can't move that, or maybe I can't feel that. So I'm gonna square up, hands directly underneath the shoulders on both sides, knees directly underneath the hips. And from here, keeping my head neutral, CAMEL is a yoga move, right? I'm gonna start to tuck my pelvis, and I'm gonna think if I can start at one vertebrae, I'm just gonna tuck. And then the next vertebrae, it's gonna tuck. And then the next one, tuck. And I wanna move all the way through the spine. What I don't want is that as I tuck here, everything moves. We're thinking one vertebrae at a time, which is very, very hard to connect to for most people. My pelvis is tucking on this, right? Moving into my thoracic spine. And then when you hit peak, you'll feel it. The spine won't move anymore. And then I can reverse all of that. So starting at my pelvis, I could start with my upper back, right? But we're gonna start at the pelvis. I'm gonna tilt opposite direction, opposite. And what's good about these positions is I'm trying to hold the rest as I move one section of my spine and one vertebrae at a time, so that you'll actually feel how the spine segments. Now, I would roll through that either for time. We could just say, hey, 1 minute, you're just going through it, slow, steady pace. You see, I'm not rushing through it. Or I could say passes, 3 to 5, 5 to 10, right? For right now, there is no wrong number or time scheme for this. What we want to do is you just have to tune into your body. What are you feeling, right? Your body will let you know, hey, I'm done, right? And then over time, you can build kind of more endurance with this, and you'll notice that you can actually do this movement longer. So as I roll through this, I would review what I just saw. I haven't seen it yet. I don't have anything externally watching me. I don't have somebody cueing me, walking their fingers up my spine. If you do have that, that's awesome. If you don't, I'll review the tape and be like, oh man, this section, whatever it may be, right through here on my back, it kind of moves as one whole unit. What we'll see is people segment, and if you're in kind of a worse position in terms of being able to segment your spine, you may see it's like this and this, or the lower half, right? It's like two portions on the lower. Meanwhile, I have a lot of different vertebrae down here, but there's really just two sections moving versus like 4 or 5 or 6 sections, right? We may see that, and then over time, what'll happen is that 2 gets split. Maybe one of those sections gets split, right? So now we actually have more. We have, if we went from 2 sections, we have 4 sections, right? Or 3 sections, whatever it may be, you'll gain more with this. A way to tune into that, because part of this is motor control, right? Do I have the control to do that? The other half of this is just, do I have the neurological connection? When I do this with my new clients, they're like, I don't even feel my spine, which is why I'll walk my fingers up each vertebrae because it helps. But if I don't have somebody there to do that, maybe I just notice on camera, hey, this section right through here on my upper back doesn't move as much as I'd like it to. I'm gonna put the band, right? And it doesn't have to be, I don't need a gnarly band for this. I don't need anything heavy. This is a light band here. It goes underneath my arms here, right? I take the hands bottom up. That's the best configuration so that the band isn't on the outside of my arms. And now in this, it's putting pressure where I would want to drive into more, right? Or I could let float down more. This is me focusing on one small area of my back to make sure that I can feel and feed into the segmentation there, okay? So I can change that. Maybe I do a couple rounds of just trying to feel it there and isolating my thoracic spine. And then maybe I do it on the lumbar spine. I could do it there as well. Now for this though, we're focusing on thoracic, but a lot of these things can still apply to my lumbar, my lower back, okay? So the CAMEL is one variation where we're using the whole spine. But if I want to isolate just the thoracic spine, if I can sit in this position and put my hands down, this creates a block for my lumbar spine. It's very hard for me to move my lumbar spine. So now as I'm here, if I start at the top, I can move away. I can put my finger on the next portion right here. I can try to push this away. Go here, move away. Here, move away. And I can kind of crawl down to about my sternum. And then here, let's bring this forward a little bit. Next spot up, bring it forward a little bit. Next spot up, forward a little bit. Forward, forward, and then forward, right? You're still gonna see slight movement down here, that's fine, right? But I'm still trying to tune into, can I actually move each of these away and then bring them forward without it being one big movement where it happens all at once. I can still use the band, by the way. I can still put this on a section of my spine, and then now let's just focus on that. I could be here, right? And I'm gonna push more into the band in that section, and I could give into that. Maybe the band is here so that I can keep that stationary, and it's can I move the vertebrae around that without this particular vertebrae that the band is on moving a ton, right? You can kind of use it as input to create a restriction, okay? Now let's say you're here and you're like, I can't sit on my feet like that. I just don't have the flexibility or the mobility for that. I could sit on a bench and I could put something here in front of me, right? Another bench, whatever it may be. And then in this position, I can do the same thing because it's still creating somewhat of a block for your lumbar spine, your lower back. I could do these all together. I could do these individually, right? They're all serving a different purpose here, but the biggest thing is that we're trying to segment the spine and keep it moving, right? Your body's designed to move, and when it doesn't, when you put it in situations where it's very restricted and it's not moving a bunch, over time, you're going to lose range of motion. You're going to lose certain movements. I always tell clients it's a use it or lose it. If I'm not using that range of motion, my body's not going to invest a ton of time in keeping that range of motion. When we talk about active range of motion, right, the range of motion that you control, we call that mobility. So this is spinal mobility, right? More specific to thoracic spine in regards to extension, but still spine mobility, thoracic spine mobility, versus flexibility, which is passive, that's stretching, right? How far can I stretch my back? Well, if you stretch it for me, it's gonna go really, really far. But if you ask me, how far can I actively get into a certain position, that's gonna be vastly different. And this is where we're trying to bridge the gap between the two. It's a Dr. Andrea Spina thing that I always think about, which is you're never gonna regret training the range of motion that you get injured in. Most common thing that I see in here, knee, shoulder, and back. It fluctuates, lumbar spine to thoracic spine, typically lumbar spine. But we see those injuries more often in here, and that's one of those things where if I can get them moving those body parts, right, and get it durable and strong, they're not gonna regret the training that we do for it. So we're always trying to stay ahead of anything. That way we call it injury mitigation. We're not preventing an injury necessarily. We're prepping so that we can become durable, right? So that is it. Anybody, if you have any questions or comments on this, let me know. Like I said, you can do this in combination, right? Or you can do it individually. Maybe you try all three and you're like, I feel this one the most for right now, and then come back later and revisit the others. There is no right or wrong way right now to do these things. Just get your feet wet And if you have any, like I said, questions or comments, let me know in the comment section. If there's something I need to explain better, or maybe I do one video just extrapolating the information a little bit more with one particular thing, whether it was the band doing thoracic spine segmentation, or the CAMEL, or the more of like a stretch right here, which is the thoracic spine extension over the foam roller. So I will do that as well if you guys need me to. So that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you really liked the video, hit the like button for me. If you want to continue to follow along with all of my content, not only the review stuff that I do, but also the exercise stuff like this, hit the subscribe button for me. Thanks so much for watching.